In this episode, we're going to continue our series looking at different commodities, and we're going to be looking at the cocoa bean, the base product behind chocolate. So, cocoa beans were first domesticated in Central America and Mexico in about 4,000 years ago. In fact, there is evidence that they were separately domesticated in South America 1,500 years before that. And they've always been thought of as very, very valuable. In fact, we know that in Mesoamerica, before the Spanish arrived, cocoa beans were being used as a currency. So in terms of the cocoa beans themselves, this is the tree that they grow on. And so they grow in a number of different areas. And in fact, there are 3 different varieties. For this, we're bringing in information which comes from the website of the Swiss Trading and Shipping Association, STSA. And so there are 3 different varieties that we are looking at. First of all, there is Forastero. This is about 80 to 90% of the world's crop. And this is considered to be an ordinary cocoa. The next is the Criollo, and this is a higher quality. This is considered to be a delicacy. And then we also have the Trinitario, which is a hybrid from Trinidad, and that is also considered to be more robust and of higher quality as well. So we have these 3 different qualities with slightly different markets. Then, if we have a look at some information, in fact, which is available from the Swiss Platform for Sustainable Cocoa, and we have information about the production. And we can see straight away, in fact, if we have a look at the areas of production, we have the different continents. Africa dominates the global production of cocoa. And in fact, in terms of the countries themselves, we have Ivory Coast here, which makes up about 40% of the world's cocoa production. So very, very, very important crop for this area. Now, going back to information from the STSA website, in terms of storage, there are essentially 4 different sites of storing the cocoa during the whole process. First of all, at the farming level, where you have to aggregate the goods. Then you have the traders. Then you have the processing level, and then you have the exporting level. So 4 different areas where the storage has to be done, and it needs to be very, very carefully stored. They cannot let moisture get near it. You cannot let insects or vermin get near the product. Otherwise, in terms of processing, there are essentially 4 different steps when we're looking at the processing. And so first of all, we have the cleaning of the beans themselves, we have the pre-roasting, we have the winnowing, and then we have the alkalization. And so all these steps are very, very important in ensuring that we have a good final product. In terms of the processing itself, the number of different countries which are involved in this, but again, we see that it's actually quite clearly split between the different countries. But in terms of the countries which are most active, Netherlands is very, very, very active for processing of cocoa beans for historical reasons. Then we have a look back at the STSA. And so here we have what are the products which are derived from the cocoa beans. Essentially, there are 4 different products which are derived from cocoa beans. First of all, we have the cocoa liqueur, we have the cocoa cake, we have cocoa butter, and we have cocoa powder. So cocoa itself, very, very, very important, and we see it traded in large quantities. Essentially, this is the base product for chocolate, and so we see chocolate consumed around the world. But we also have other goods which are derived from cocoa beans. We have some cosmetics. We also have some other foodstuffs, importantly mole in Mexico, and also the husks can be used for animal feed, and that can be quite a high source of fats for those animals. So if we're going to move on and start talking about the trading companies involved. In terms of the trading companies involved, there are essentially 4 different companies which really dominate the market. So we have ADM, we have Barry Callebaut, we have Sukden, and we have Cargill. And so these occupy something in the region of 50 to 60% of the traded volumes. But we also have some smaller companies which are getting involved in the trading operations. And so the idea here is to really try and support the local farmers and to reduce the numbers of intermediaries. And a good example is the Banyan Alliance, which is producing cocoa producing chocolate originally from Ecuador, and this is in collaboration with the Commodity Trading alumni here in Geneva. So we're seeing a lot of these, we're seeing a lot of efforts towards fair trade and to help the local farmers. Otherwise, in terms of global consumption, which countries consume the most? United States, by far, it consumes the most. However, in terms of which consume the most by per capita, first of all, Belgium, then Switzerland, Germany, and so here we're seeing about 6 kilos per person consumed in these countries. So in terms of cocoa beans themselves, they're mainly transported in containers, and so they'll be put in bags, they'll be transported in containers, they can also be transported in conventional vessels, but we need to be very, very, very careful because the risks involved in transportation is first of all the moisture. We have to be careful about them getting wet. We also have to be very, very careful about insects and infestation, and we have to be very, very careful about odor because a negative odor can seriously affect the quality of the goods. So that brings us to the end of looking at cocoa beans. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Commodity Brief, and please click back soon for new episodes. Thank you.